You're all set.
Okay, great. Welcome to the Scarborough Ordinance meeting of March the 13th. I can't believe that we're already this far into spring. Started early. I call to order the Scarborough Ordinance Committee. And I want to make note that all three counselors are here and present, so that if you could make note of that, that'd be great. Hamill, I'm Jean Marie Caterina, the chair, and April Seither. So again, thank you for coming. If you hadn't heard already, Jean Marie is pretty specific about how we do comments, which is not going to make everybody happy, but I'd rather hear from as many of you as possible. Excuse me, my nose is running for some reason. We're gonna have 15 minutes of comments, and then that's it. And the reason we do that is because otherwise we could be here all night. And the purpose of these ordinance committee meetings are to set the table, so to speak. And we need to do our work here as counselors, and we do what we do, and then it goes to town council. So there's all sorts of opportunities for input. My best advice to folks is to send an email, because I really want to hear your specifics on the impacts or whatever this would be for you as a business person. It would be town council at Scarborough, Maine, spelled all the way out, which I'm sorry, because it's sometimes Scarborough's hard to, you're typing it, I get it mixed up sometimes. .org. It's not .com, it's not .gov, it's .org. And in the address, put Ordinance Committee. And you could put cannabis too, put that up there so we'll know. And I make that part of the record so that, again, we all get to hear what you have to say more specifically. So that being said, oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. April, she's reminding me, we forgot to do the approval of the minutes from Valentine's Day, so.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? That's it. Thank you. I know, I get off of my, I used to teach high school, in case you wonder where I get this from. So anyway, Liam, do you mind keeping a 15-minute timer for me?
Do you want to keep individual comments limited to 3?
Yes, 3 minutes is your individual time. Keep it specific. If you've got someone that can speak for a group of people, that's awesome. I would ask that you come down here to the hot seat, and whoever wants to speak, if you want to line up so that you can just, move in quickly, that would be great. And let's go. And please give us your name.
My name is Jill Cohen. I'm an attorney. I work in the cannabis industry exclusively. If you would indulge me, because not everyone's going to get a moment to speak. If you are here from the cannabis industry, can you raise your hand? Thank you. I want as many people as possible to have the opportunity to speak to you. First of all, good evening, Councilors Caterina, Hamill, and Seither. I'm legal counsel to numerous Scarborough-based marijuana businesses that are represented here tonight, specifically including ZGE Botanicals at 4 Commercial Road and Coastal Remedies at 3 Commercial Road, and a handful of businesses at the snow canning facility. I'm offering public comment in response to the Ordinance Committee's consideration of ordinance changes that could include an attempt to totally phase out marijuana cultivation in Scarborough. Scarborough, I'm going to skip a bit. I've reviewed the history of the odor complaints. I am aware that there have been 0 notices of violation issued related to odor complaints. There have been no fines issued, and there have been no substantiated complaints. Scarborough has the most robust odor ordinance in the state, no question. The best research, the best put together, and the most recent version of it has only been in place since August. I'm here today to ask you to give your ordinance a chance to work. I understand that marijuana fatigue for the council is real. because I have been working in Scarborough in the cannabis industry since 2017, when I started with one business on Pleasant Hill Road. So I've been in front of you many times, and I do. I've grown up a lot, Mr. Hamill, in these years. Like, I've learned a lot, particularly in Scarborough. So I know that the instinct is to just say, we've heard enough, we've got these abutters and they're upset, and we've been dealing with this for 6 or 7 years and we're done. So I definitely get that. But nothing the council does is going to eliminate cultivation in Scarborough. I know that your attorney has advised you that towns cannot limit or prohibit caregiver cultivation. I've spoken with your attorney prior to this meeting. So what you're going to have still is medical cultivation. And I know Councilor Katarina in particular, that at least right now, that's a less regulated license category. What you're considering will inadvertently target only 5 businesses. There are only 5 adult use cultivation licensees in Scarborough, and I represent 2 of them. One of them, among the owners of the company, ZGE Botanicals, the 4 principals, they're here and they're also in Saco. They have 10 kids between them. So it's 4 families that will be impacted if they're forced to phase out their business over a 5-year period. Coastal Remedies, and ZGE employs 15 people. In Coastal Remedies, you'll hear from Chris. He has 3 kids. His facility employs 30 people. A move to eliminate what would really just be adult use cultivation would be devastating. They have significant investments in their businesses and in Scarborough. I offer 2 options for the council to consider. You can cap the size and number of cultivation licenses now. And a lot of towns have done that. Scarborough's never done that. And then the other option I put forth is to, like I said, put effort into enforcing your ordinance, give the ordinance time to work. Nobody's been cited under it so far, and just give it some time to work. So I really want to thank you for the time. It's good to see you all.
Great. And if, Jill, you're gonna give us a copy of your
Would you
testimony?
prefer I email it in or?
Yeah, if you'd
Right now?
email it, that'd be great.
I'll email
Thanks,
it.
Jill. Yeah. Good evening.
You want to get right after it or what?
Go for it.
All right. Dear members of Scarborough Town Council, my name is Chris McNeil. I'm one of the owners at Coastal Remedies here at 3 Commercial Road, Scarborough. I got 30 full-time employees, as Jill mentioned, and I've been in business now for 2 years. I came into the cannabis business with over 2 decades of professional experience in secondary education. I'm a husband, I'm a father of 3, spanning kids from 5 to 15 years old. Why is this relevant? Because I'm a professional and a family man who's well aware of the stigma surrounding cannabis. And I'm someone who's extremely cognizant of what it means to be a good neighbor, and my desire to be just that is extremely strong. I'm also responsible for 30 employees and their families and livelihoods. So it's very, very personal for me and for us, because we're talking about real people whose lives are being thrown into upheaval and turmoil because of these newly proposed ordinances. I address you today with deep concern regarding proposed elimination and rezoning of cannabis cultivation in Scarborough. Proposal primarily a result of continued complaints from a small but vocal minority of residents is a knee-jerk response that doesn't consider the realities and facts of the situation and threatens to undermine the livelihoods and businesses like mine and the integrity of our community. A brief history of the odor ordinance from the perspective of 3 Commercial Road. From the inception of my business in March 22 until September 22nd of 23, so that's over a year, I received 0 communications or complaints from the town in regards to any odor concerns. On 9/22 of 23, the town sent an informal email mentioning anecdotal odor complaints, and none of which had been substantiated or even communicated to me. I asked the code enforcement team to please communicate with my compliance officer and myself directly whenever there was concerns or complaints regarding odor, so that I could try to identify some patterns or scenarios which might be contributing to the odor complaints and consequently rectify them. As I mentioned before, we want to work with the town and our neighbors on any cannabis issues, and we certainly have been as responsive as possible. We received no notice of violation or even of complaints until February, when the code enforcement notified me of a complaint. At that time, I requested a history of the list of complainants to once again try to identify the situation that I might be in violation. To my surprise, there were 14 complaints between September and February. However, 10 of them were from the same residents. This has the feel of a witch hunt empowered by a loud minority of citizens. How am I as a person or a business supposed to rectify a concern that has been communicated? As a business owner, we have expressed intention and desire to help quell the concerns of our fellow residents and citizens, but have not received the same collaborative effort in return from the town. There are additional steps that I can and will take to address these odor concerns, but the town has not communicated effectively on this issue, among others. Under the new ordinance, there have been no confirmed odor incidents, fines, and notices of violations. This indicates that the current framework is functioning as intended and should be allowed to continue to do so. We can't let a small minority of residents dictate the lives of so many towns, residents, and businesses. Where does it end? Can we regulate the smells from automobiles if enough people complain? What about the smells of nature that are offensive to some and not to others, right? What about a business or industry that I just don't, if I get enough people to complain and bombard the town, I don't like, is that enough to shut down an entire industry? That's a real question, right?
Chris, you can take a breath. I'll let you go.
Oh, okay, I'm under the gun here. I'm under the gun. I'm usually working, right? Okay. So what about the smells of nature that are offensive to some and a pleasure to others? What about a business or an industry that, if I just don't like, I can get enough people to complain and to bombard the town and shut it down? Is that enough to shut down an entire industry? All interesting points to consider and ones that I don't think have been fully thought through. The current ordinance has been in place, as Jill said, for less than a year. Let's give it time to work and provide the town staff the necessary resources to enforce it effectively. License fees are intended to support the enforcement efforts and ensure compliance. Consider the devastating impact of knowing that within 5 years, my business in Scarborough could be forced to shut down. This realization renders years of investment and dedication nearly worthless, jeopardizing the livelihoods of myself and my employees. Who's going to pay me personally back for my life savings I've invested into the cannabis business in Scarborough? 2 years ago, I dumped my life savings in this business. Who's gonna do something about that? How am I gonna pay back the millions of dollars in loans I took to start the business? How am I gonna recoup the millions of dollars I have invested in our build out with our 10-year business plan? Right? Even this moratorium right now today will cost me over $100,000 per month in revenue, as well as result in the direct loss of up to 5 employees and families. Never mind the impact beyond June 30th. That's real today. Like, I'm going to let 5 people go today because of this moratorium. All right, I'm going to lose $100,000 a month in revenue. Scarborough boasts the most robust cannabis ordinance in the state. Let me move forward. Okay. Here's the bottom line. We're real citizen and business owners in Scarborough. I know we've been not present at these meetings. I know we've been working, right? That's the issue. Now we're here. We're local. We live here. We play here. We work here. We pay taxes here. And most importantly, we raise our families here. Shutting this down is like I said to Liam a few weeks ago, tell my wife it's not personal. Tell my wife it's not personal. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Chris. How much time do we have?
We can do 3 more. We'll do 3.
3.
3 more, yeah.
Any brave people? 3? We're really nice, you notice, okay?
I know it's kind of an awkward setup, but.
All right. My name is Brandon Albert, and I'm obviously one of the growers down. I don't know if everybody's down in Pine Point, but for those of you who want to ban cannabis in the town, I'd just ask you to consider this. There's at least 14 businesses and their families that I know of, and their children that we put out of a job. Their livelihood is going to be taken away from them. They're going to lose their homes. Kids will have to move schools, all because a few neighbors don't like weed. And if we allow this to happen, the previous speaker already touched on some of this, but we're going to tell the people in Scarborough that if they want to shut down an entire industry, all they have to do is complain about the smell. Are we going to shut down farms because somebody doesn't like the smell of the farm? Somebody doesn't like the smell of fish. Are we going to not allow fishing anymore? No more lobstering? I mean, where does it end? It's a dangerous precedent to set, and we can't allow it to happen. Most of these people, as he mentioned, have put their life savings into this business. Some of them moved their entire families from other states. It costs, on average, I mean, it varies depending on the size of your grow, but at least $100,000 to set up one of these grow operations, if not more. There's environmental controls built into the building that they can't get back. There's irrigation and drainage systems that cannot be taken with them. There's construction costs that they will not get back. They'll now have to spend another $100,000 to move their operation elsewhere. Setting up a new grow will take time, and then once it's ready, it's going to take another 6 months for them to start making money. If you add the cost or the time it takes to build, and then how much it takes them to start making money, each business is going to lose 9 months to a year worth of income, worth of sales. I know these people are going to be expected to be compensated for the move, and I'm sure their lawyers will agree. Is the town willing to spend millions of dollars to compensate all the operations that are forced to move their business and their homes, to compensate each family that's uprooted? Because that's what it will take. Are you aware that your citizens can legally grow marijuana in their own homes? Have you checked all the homes on the street where the complaints are coming from in surrounding homes? What makes you absolutely sure the smell is coming from all the grows down in Snow Canning? There are by far the most strict regulations on odor control that I have ever seen in any town that these businesses all abide by. Unless you've confirmed that every home in the area is not growing in their own home, it's impossible to say where the main issue is coming from. Are you willing to remove all the tax income these businesses bring to the town? The people of Scarborough voted to allow cannabis in the town. Are you going to ignore what the majority has already voted on? Are you willing to put at least 14 families, all of their employees, and the families of those employees out of work to negatively impact over 200 lives, all because a few people don't like weed? If you really care about what's best for the greater good, the people of Scarborough, please do the right thing.
Thank you. Well, I get you clapping. I'm gonna let you clap, but I have to technically, I'm supposed to tell you, you're not supposed to do that, but you're being good, so keep going.
Here we are
Hi.
again. You guys all know me by now. I'm Mike Shannon of Shannon's Best Buds and Secret Stash product line, 10 Snow Canning Road, as well as 15 Holly Street. We're a family-run operation with a total of 13 employees. When you factor spouses, families, etc., our company impacts 20 to 30 or 25 to 30 people directly. Be careful about what precedent you set here. The way this gets handled might have other impacts to other industries, and people may lose a desire to do business in your town. To the members of the council, it's been a long road, specifically Jean Marie. At times, it's a road that hasn't felt was paved with good intentions. We've done everything asked of us. And to my knowledge, there hasn't been one confirmed report of odor coming from our facility. The amount of complaints has certainly plummeted, which shows that this is something that's possible to contain. If the complaints are down, we've had 0 confirmations. How is phasing out the result? Doesn't feel like we were ever given a fair chance or shake to truly, or to work on a truly subjective item. How's that the result? There are numerous items that can be done, from oversight, capping of licenses, etc. If your kids were in school with failing grades and they improved to a B+ or an A- level, that wouldn't make you happy? Sure, more work needs to be done, but you wouldn't be encouraged or happy about that? The other reality, which most of us have come to, is that nobody wants us here no matter what. At this point, it wouldn't matter what we did. Wouldn't be good enough. I know for an absolute fact there's a resident on one of those streets that grows, which I've told you guys before. How do you prove that we're the issue without any confirmations? But let's just shut them down because it's the easiest, right? I'm simply asking you guys to take a look at all the people, all the families that you're impacting, and that's just who came tonight. People who are going to lose their life savings, abilities to earn, and more. Take a long look at these people, because this shows that you're actually negatively impacting far more people than the complainants. Come on, we're better than this. If our ancestors were looking over us right now, they'd want to kick our asses for arguing about such stupid items and not being able to get this figured out. And I'm not sure how someone, I did not want to be in your shoes to make that vote, because I wouldn't be able to go home and sleep with a clear conscience at night, knowing all the people that I negatively impacted. 37 going on 38. When I was a kid, when a lot of us were kids, there were things that weren't acceptable that are now. Over the years, there have been a lot of movements, not limited to same-sex marriage, narrowing pay gaps, various, rights of minorities. This industry is going on 15 to 20 years. This isn't just emerging. It's time that we change with the times. I realize it's a difficult item to handle, but it's my opinion that phasing us out is the easy way out. I hope you guys have the ability to go home and look yourselves in the mirror tonight and be more open to changes in the world, because as mentioned, there are a lot of things that are acceptable now that once weren't. Please don't be on the wrong side of history.
Thank you, Mike. One more, room for one more. Go ahead.
Please remember to email and your.
Yes.
I'll take a crack at one of these. Just a reminder, though, the last comments, you're gonna have to watch, the language. You know, I know our forefathers spoke plainly, but I don't think they used some of the words you were using, so please remember that. And also a reminder that we're not obligated to allow any, there's no right for the public to speak in a committee meeting, right? So, I mean, the only right you have is to attend a public hearing. There's not even a public right to speak at a town council meeting. So we've already gone to great lengths to encourage and expand those opportunities. So we welcome that, and we think that'll help us understand the issues better and come out with a better outcome. But at the same
Thank you,
time, we'd
Mr.
also like
Hayden.
to respect that.
Let's
Thank
not
you.
get into it.
And that wasn't 3 minutes, so thank you, Madam Chair. I get
And
more
you
time.
are?
Hello, my name is Derek Shirley. I'm actually a town official in my town on the zoning board. I go up to,
Thanks for your service.
thank you, town of Gray. I also go to the State House regularly. I air quote myself as a lobbyist, but I don't like to use that dirty word because I don't fit that mold. So I'm here to discuss, maybe on a state level of what's happening a little bit. I talked to your Senator Brenner, who's an awesome person, honestly. I'm a big fan of knitting, frankly, big fan of knitting. And when I was speaking with her, it's very clear that it seems like this incident, because I spoke with you once before, you guys are very disconnected with the reality of even some of the senators. There was a subcommittee medical group done during the VLA that was for medical rules. This is getting there. Well, the biggest hurdle that operators have is, ready for this? Stigma. That's what the VLA members of this special committee have figured out. So when I'm reading your ordinance here, there's a lot of that, and some of it's just personal is just like we need to wake up and realize that this is a $500 million industry we're talking about here. So it's just like let's talk about blueberries for a second. That's more than blueberries. That's more than even lobster in certain years. So why are we disrespecting these farmers by complaints that don't even have any verification? We've learned that through the letter that you guys received. So how are we forcing public ordinances on zero verification complaints? That's really my question is I understand. I'm not even saying the smells may or may not exist. Not disputing that. My dispute is how are you now going to write ordinances based off of data that has no verification? And that's my big question for the committee is I'm usually a rough guy. I'm usually known as to be a pit bull. I'm not here to go give you a hard time, but let's lose some common sense here. Even Senator Timberlake up there in Androscoggin, one of the very conservative men, he's even coming around to the cannabis world. Again, if I witnessed that, I can witness you guys too. So let's really think about this, and let's listen to all the people that are here, and let's really think about that. This is a $500 million industry, and this isn't. You're right. This isn't your grandpa and mom and pop's cannabis anymore. We are grown adult businesses, and let's start treating us like that.
Thank you. You left out the paid political announcement part of your.
I'm not paid at all, actually. So I run my own.
Said his own
thanks.
thing.
Yeah, go to the search line. So,
All right.
Strictly business cards later.
thank you, sir. No business cards out.
That's the end of public comment. So I thank you very much.
I thought this was a line, so I was standing at the end of it. I can't comment.
No, I told you 10 times. No, we're good. Thank you. You know my email, right? Sorry.
Not that effective. I really thought it was.
I'm sorry. So anyway, again, I'm very impressed that you all turned out. I think that's awesome. And now what's going to happen is that we are now going to get into our agenda, and the cannabis is number one on this agenda. I don't know how many of you printed it out or have, I know Jill does, but so comments from my fellow ordinance members.
Yeah, I'd like to lead off. I have a history with this matter. Jean Marie and I we worked together on ordinance for 18 months in adopting the state ordinances for application here in Scarborough. And we followed very deliberative and a very participative process in so doing that. And along the way, we felt that we were balancing the rights of the individuals with the rights of the business owners and the operators here. So, and we're committed to do that. The moratorium that's in place, I would like to say, is something that we're considering. It doesn't mean that we're going to be removing business, entirely from the town. So those statements to that effect that we're trying to ban it were simply not true. We do permit cultivation, we do permit, medical marijuana operations, cannabis operations. So, and they have expanded here as they have throughout the state. So we understand and accept that it's a major cash crop for the state and for the town. And we respect the rights of business operators in town. So we will be balanced in this process. The difficulty is it's not really our job as counselors. We are accountable to the public. And that includes, not only residents, but also taxpayers in town. And you folks have made those points very, very effectively. But our job is to really find, is to respond to concerns. Our job is not to prove a negative. It's not to prove that marijuana doesn't create an odor. That's not our job. And we had a very deliberative process that took place over several months that was led by the assistant manager, Liam Gallagher, in which many of you participated in actually developing the very same procedures that some of you are criticizing, that are having difficulties with really identifying, where the problems are. So the reason for the moratorium is to try to not expand further while we're studying that. Those are time bound. And the other measures also are options that have not been adopted yet, and we'll go through an extensive process of public review and discussion in which there will be participation. So that's just what I'd like to say at the outset. We have experience with it, and we've tried very hard to be balanced and balance the competing interests that are involved here.
Okay. Council Sullivan?
Sure, thank you. I will say that I'm newest on the ordinance committee to this topic. But I did serve on the cannabis working group that was established about a year ago timeframe. That worked through basically the newer part of the ordinance as it relates to enforcement. And so the people who spoke to the fact that the ordinance is relatively new, that resonates with me. I helped to work on it. The fact that we are kind of still trying to get our arms around this validation process and what to do when a resident complaint comes in, and how do we make sure that code enforcement is able to be there in a timely way. These are all things that we're grappling with. It's the same discussions we had at the working group to try and figure out the best way to work together. Some of the things that came out of public comment that, I certainly want everyone to know that I hear and that do resonate with me is that we have not been able to figure out an effective practice as a town to verify those complaints that are coming in. We know the complaints are coming in, but we're struggling a little bit with that piece of it. And I want to acknowledge that I do hear that. The other part of it is the communications piece. That is always, no matter what committee I serve on, always one of the biggest challenges. And I definitely want everyone in the room to know that I hear this piece that for some of you, you feel as though there's a communications gap between the residents making a complaint and your ability to do something and your willingness to do something. And so I want to recognize the people who spoke to that as well. And so that's where I'll start. And I have a feeling, as this conversation evolves, we'll have some guidance from town staff, but I'll let you know that's where I am right now.
Yeah, and I'll finish up by saying, thank you very much for I thought the testimony was excellent. You laid out some really good arguments, and there's some of the arguments that I have inside my own head, with what needs to happen and not happen here. But as Councillor Hamill points out, our job is to balance all of these, competing interests. And I know it's not just been Pine Point, it's been over the Pleasant Hill area too, which I've experienced myself personally. I mean, Liam will tell you, I've called him directly a few times, when the odor's been really bad on Pondview. But that being said, I wish the heck someone would come up with a really good way to mitigate cannabis. I keep wanting to call it marijuana. I know I'm supposed to call it cannabis now. Cannabis odor, because that would be so helpful. I did meet with Senator Brenner Sunday for 2 hours, I'll have you know, not specifically on this, but on some other things. And she and I discussed enforcement and how we need to come up with a really stringent enforcement. And I was pleased to hear her say that we really need to, you know, people who are violating these odor things need to be hit with fines or whatever. I know some of the faces out there going, oh my God. But, you know, this is Jean Marie speaking. I can see it as it's so hard because you've got all, you know, your own individual grows within, you know, these buildings. So it's like, I don't know which one it's coming from necessarily. So part of me is like, well, maybe we find the landlords. Maybe we find all of you in the building. And the landlord, I don't know. But I see this as the first thing. I agree, we need to do something about the enforcement. And then we're going to go and look at, you know, what else we were gonna do. My initial feeling was, yeah, amortize. And then have an overlay where cultivation is allowed. I'm a small business owner myself. And I know that that's like, do we really want to do that too? So this is why we're having this conversation, okay? So, and I know I'm speaking to the crowd, we should be speaking with each other here more or less, but I know, I do that all the time.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that,
Yeah, so go
Senator
ahead.
Brenner
So we're
is-
gonna do more conversationally
Yeah,
now.
I
This is
don't-
what we usually do.
yeah, I don't want to kind of get off into another topic, but I am pleased to hear that, Senator Brenner is taking on enforcement as a new initiative, so. It's good to
Why-
hear that. So.
Well, she's not talking about an initiative at the state level, I don't think. It was just we were talking about here.
Helping us.
Yeah,
Okay.
and she's on VLA, so,
So-
which is the committee that does marijuana.
Great.
Excuse me, cannabis.
So I think we've covered the major points. Only final thing I would add is that, you know, we will take the same approach to this that we took with adopting the ordinances from the state, for the town, you know, and we were methodical and thorough, and several of you participated in that, and someone even, you know, called me a, you know, progressive, which was, I thought was.
I just about
surprised by that.
died,
Yeah,
right?
that was-
I did have that.
So.
Well, that.
So at any rate, I will just leave it with that, just to say, we will be deliberate and thorough in our work. And the concept of, you know, amortization, you know, that's something that's sort of, you know, way back in the pack in terms of a method that could be considered over time, you know, once we establish what the baseline is.
Tell them
And
what that means. And I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah, no,
Because I
that, yeah,
wasn't
no,
sure
that's a
exactly what you're
legitimate.
talking about.
It would involve the possibility of certain businesses that are here for a period of time before ordinances are passed have grandfathered rights to continue to operate. We're not really certain how many of those businesses there would be, but that would be an extreme measure. I don't think we would lead off with that, and it's not even clear how, if or how it would apply. So-
In effect, it's a phase out, so to speak. In other words, okay, so you're at snow canning. You may have to move, if you want to continue, may have to move to an overlay area, or, I don't know, it's
But-
still,
It's way in the back of
That's-
the options that we're considering, as by no means sort of at the lead of the pack. So when people are saying we are hell bent on taking marijuana operations out of the town of Scarborough, I don't think that's a fair statement at all. Actually, if you look at what's happened in the past 6 or 9 months, we've actually approved more licenses for cannabis operations or expanded licenses for current marijuana operations. So the facts really don't match exactly with some of the feedback that we've heard. So, but you have our commitment that we will, be deliberate, and we represent a range of views here. Counselor Katarina and I are often called the odd couple, and it's probably a fair statement. We haven't figured out how to fit April into the mix there yet with that, but she'll remind us how to do that.
April. Then
No, I'm good. I'm curious,
what do you think our next moves should be? Cause these guys are gonna wanna know what
Sure.
we should do for next moves.
sure, I would certainly be interested to hearing from staff on how to meet this challenge of enforcement.
Yeah.
And I know Liam has some things in the packet in terms of changes to maybe some of the things that we had proposed in this last iteration that came out of the working group. And so I think probably that is where my priority and focus would be, especially in the short term.
Yeah, I agree. Mr. Gallagher.
Great, thank you. The proposed change in the packet, following up on the last, the committee discussion in February. Again, the observation's been made that the town continues to receive complaints of odor. But the way the ordinance is currently structured, there's been no enforcement action and no verified complaints. And it's a little bit more complicated than this, but in essence, there's a certain threshold of complaint within a certain period of time and a certain proximity that needs to be met in order for the town to dispatch a representative to go out and see if they can smell the odor. If they can't smell the odor, then it's not a verified complaint. Since this ordinance went into effect in August, there have been 2 instances where that complaint threshold has been met, and neither of them were verified by staff. So I think the feeling, I think the sentiment of the committee last month was we continue to receive complaints, yet no enforcement actions been occurring or happened. So how do we change that? And so what is in front of you, and again, out of the last discussion, was to adopt a process, a mirrored process to what's currently in the Good Neighbor Ordinance around noise or light violations. So it's essentially when a complaint comes in, a town official, either a code enforcement officer or a law enforcement officer, is dispatched to that location, and then they would verify in short order if there's any veracity to the complaint. And so it doesn't, again, the current ordinance language, I would say characterized as very progressive, with various steps required of either the licensee or the building owner when certain thresholds are met. This is a much more straightforward process. Again, it obviously expands the number of parties who can enforce or verify complaints. And it's really intended for discussion purposes. It's whether, again, I think that the point or the feeling is that residents can make complaints. It's really incumbent upon the town to verify that those complaints or concerns are valid. How do we do that with a higher degree of responsiveness? So with regard to enforcement, that's what's in front of you based on our last discussion as a committee.
And that's section 11.
That's section 11.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like seeing adding law enforcement to it.
Can you make a comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just because I know that there's probably some assumptions around law enforcement having a role in this. From my perspective, or at least my understanding, is the involvement of law enforcement at this point is literally a matter of staffing. That it makes sense to have our law enforcement involved, our public safety personnel involved for basically because they are on patrol. And so if we have a call or an odor complaint, and our code enforcement team is not available, then it would make sense to have someone from public safety do that verification.
And that's all they're doing, right? Is
Yeah.
verification. They're just like driving by, walking around, whatever, just to say, yes, we smelled odor at such a day, time.
They have a similar role in enforcement as they do with the Good Neighbor Ordinance, which governs noise complaints as well as
Like,
lighting complaints. So, and actually, the process we have for odor in this case that's applying to cannabis, is very, very tough to verify. The noise complaints, interestingly enough, they take a decibel measurement to see, you know, if there's a basis for it. So, but that's the kind of the first step of progression in terms of enforcement. But lately, as you might well imagine, our law enforcement and our fire department have been involved in responding to emergencies associated with sea level rise and storms that we've had in January, December, January. So people haven't really been complaining about odor that much in the past couple months, thankfully.
Yeah, Councilor Seiler, you bring up a good point. That's a good disclaimer. There's the suggestion of having law enforcement have a role in the verification process is not to be misconstrued as any sort of prior relationship between law enforcement and cannabis industry or operations. It's simply, this is a town official who's already out on the road, who's readily available 24/7. It could just as well, I presume, be any other sort of town official that has that level of patrol, and it's somewhat unique to police department.
So. Thoughts on what comes next? I'd like to get some more information and get some more feedback and emails from these folks who directly impacted. Does that make sense to you guys?
I think one other thing I'd just make a note on the proposed change to the enforcement process. You know, right now there's largely administrative renewals of licenses. Again, I think that this was a comment that I made in the last discussion. You know, taking enforcement action against a business for odor violations or citing them or issuing penalties or notices of violation. You know, as this is constructed, that wouldn't shutter a business.
Right.
But the council could implement a process either explicitly or at the time of renewal, like the council did with some other concerns around a business in town, to say, bring us any licenses that had X number of odor complaints within this period of time, and then have a public discussion at the council meeting prior to renewal. I mean, that is a process that you could undertake. Again, all the other comments about the difficulty of odor in general, I think that's pretty well trodden territory at this point. It can be fleeting, it can be gone as quickly as it is there. Again, that was part of the rationale for having a more comprehensive enforcement provision, was to suggest that if, you know, multiple parties over multiple days observe the same concern, then it was probably indicative of how significant that concern is. And again, I think the observation from the council has been, again, continue to get reports, no enforcement action has been taken, and we have a fairly good amount of reports of odor. And so what do we do? I think that's the question you're seeking to answer. What do we do?
I still have some concerns too about how to identify the source or the licensee, or whether we should be talking about landlords or building owners. Like, that is a key component of this that I think is going to continue to challenge us if we are not deliberate.
I agree.
Yeah, you know, one other thing that was happening is, you know, in the period of time that we were hearing more reports of odor complaints, I guess there were 73 of them between August and February. We were also approving expanded licenses in that time frame. So the council was struggling with the fact, well, hang on a minute, we're hearing more complaints, and yet we're in some cases accelerating or combining approvals for additional operations.
Well, can I ask a clarifying question? Not for cultivation though, because we've been under moratorium.
But those were for other licenses for existing operations that we were
But
approving.
we didn't expand cultivation during
Right.
the time.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
I just want to clarify.
Right. The point
We
is,
haven't been expanding the cultivation side
yes,
since the moratorium.
that's correct. But the discontinuity was, at least in the discussion from the public, and by the way, there's been nobody who's spoken in public comment on the other side of the issue this evening, so we should both make a note of that. there have been letters and emails to that effect. It was that discontinuity in the discussion among council that we thought, hey, does it make sense for us to take a closer look at this and, what has really happened? That's part of what brought us to this point.
Yeah, I think that what we probably should hammer out to begin with is the enforcement. What we want to do with the enforcement. Not now. After the meeting, I'll talk to you. Sorry, sir, I'm sorry.
Can we just?
No, no, sir, sir, you're out of order. Sorry. I know. Don't get in trouble. All right.
Talk about remediation.
No. I'm gonna have to bring my gavel. Some of you guys remember that before. You remember that, yeah. Okay, guys. Okay. So anyway.
March 8th.
You don't want me clearing the room, do you?
We're in the right building for that, I suppose, but.
Hey,
yeah,
Yeah.
we go back,
Yeah.
three of us.
Closer, so let's take a closer look at what we want to do with enforcement. I'm not prepared tonight to say specific, excuse me.
Ready to go to the next agenda item? I don't wanna just leave the conversation hanging,
Right,
right? This is how we end up kind of in a holding pattern. And so what do we want to come out of this discussion in terms of either request for staff, for information from staff, or additional changes? Like, I don't wanna just move this to the next meeting, I guess is my point, without some.
no, me neither. I'm happy to sit down with Mr. Gallagher and hammer out some language
Yeah,
for enforcement.
I think we need.
And run it by our town attorney and bring it back to the next meeting.
I think that's a fair
Does
next
that
step.
sound like?
I mean, the point is, I expected that we'd have some discussion in detail about about the memo from the assistant town manager, and we didn't really get into a lot of detail discussing the ordinance and proposed red lines on that. So I don't,
Kind of that discussion, if you direct me to.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I think
I know
you- I
you
think-
said something this
I think you
afternoon and I didn't.
22 pages of ordinance with some suggested edits, so.
Get us started.
I'm
As
so
a,
if you-
as a committee member, I'm more than happy to
Great.
have that discussion now. I think, coming into the meeting, just with the timing of, your thought process.
Yeah, she
I
didn't
haven't
read it
had a
either.
chance to look at it, but that doesn't mean we can't.
I'm
You
just
can
saying,
run through your thoughts in public and then that.
No, my thought process was just simply reviewing the package and had a few notes, but if folks aren't prepared to talk about that in detail,
Yeah.
then I'm happy to defer
Give us
to
a chance to
Madam
look at
Chair's suggestion
Yeah.
and come back when everyone's had a chance to catch up.
that. Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Liam? Go ahead.
I guess, is there any reaction to, is the direction, the most substantive change actually in the packet is this enforcement
Right.
language. And a very different process, again, a process that has some parallels within the community. Is there any feeling from the committee as to whether that's a direction that you would like to, again, it would require staff to be more responsive to each complaint?
Yes,
And again, to the degree the origin of the odor can't be determined, then it would be contact with the actual building owner
Yes.
or building owners.
I thought that made sense. I thought that it may make sense for us to take another turn at it or to have a workshop on it. I just don't think it's ready to go
No.
boom to council next.
no, I didn't say that.
Right.
No, that's
Yeah.
why I said that I'm happy to sit with Liam and come up with, more specific language. If that's okay with you guys.
So moved.
It's not a motion. All right,
You need a second, you vote on it? For the voting, doing it, or is it just a,
Do we,
do you?
we
want to
can
take-
take it, do we want
wanna
to
do-
do it as a motion? Yeah,
For
okay,
Jean
yes.
Marie to,
Yes.
okay.
Have her
Work with
We'll
restate
do
the
that as an
motion, yeah.
official motion.
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
I don't want people saying we didn't do anything.
All right, that's it. I know, that's
Thank
it for me. I wanna see your
Oh,
emails.
we're all here for the whole meeting.
I mean, you're.
I mean, stay, but I don't think you wanna
Tell you
see.
about this paper.
It's a great sleep aid, I will tell you.
read the whole thing.
Guaranteed.
Guys, thank you all for coming.
So,
Location.
Where are we? Where are we? All right, back to order, please. We are now on item 6, commercial property assessed clean energy seat case. And who's up?
That'd be Autumn and me.
Okay.
So as the memo said in your packet, this is something that the Sustainability Committee has been working on. No, it doesn't need to be that close.
Far back, you don't want to seat close to the owl.
I know.
It's too late for me.
So this ordinance basically allows commercial property owners to access special financing for energy efficiency projects. It is modeled after a residential PACE ordinance we've had in place here in Scarborough for over 10 years. There was a presentation made to the Ordinance Committee back in October, I believe. Just kind of outlining the program, what the requirements are. April's seen it twice now. She should be an expert, so maybe if there are questions, we can direct them to April.
Do you mind going yelling at them, acting like Jean Marie? Okay, get to class right now.
So there were a couple of questions from the last meeting when this was brought up, primarily around kind of the order. The way that it works is that the financing essentially becomes a lien against the property,
Right.
and how payback would work should there be any kind of default or anything like
So-
that.
Can you just stop there for a minute
Yeah.
and explain that to me? How does that work? If we're doing a lien on a property, that means they have a right to buy it or to.
Basically, it means that the financing is backed by the value of the property.
Okay,
And so should they default on their loan payments,
Like a mortgage.
yeah, the funder for this program would be in line to receive payback. So, and the way that the payback structure would work, they essentially move towards the top of the queue, so to speak, for lien holders that would be paid back for
so can you give me an
the
example of
investment.
where, is this in place now, or you're proposing that we implement it? I'm not sure I understand, the efficiency main commitments.
Yeah.
That commercial property.
Sure.
would have.
So, we in the town of Scarborough currently has an ordinance for residential property owners to take advantage of a similar program to receive financing to do energy efficiency projects at their
And
residence.
can you give some examples of the energy efficiency?
Yeah, so they could use it for solar array installations, for upgrades to their heating and cooling systems and things like that.
For
And
mini splits and things like that? would
yeah,
qualify?
there are kind of minimum thresholds for those upgrades, so that it basically needs to be a large enough investment that it would be worth it for people to go through the process of getting this funding and doing larger scale projects in their homes.
How about geothermal?
Yep, that would be, I believe that would be allowable. There's a kind of a formula that needs to be met so that, and this is all something that currently residents are able to do, and if this is passed, commercial property owners would be able to do. It's work with Efficiency Maine to identify the scale, the type and scale of projects that they would
And
do.
is this Rick Meinking's bailiwick? Is he related to this or?
Well,
totally
he works for
separate?
Efficiency Maine, but he doesn't work on this program specifically.
Okay, but. it's-
So this is just this, sorry, did you speak over?
No, that's okay. I remember meeting and talking with
Right.
him about Efficiency Maine and,
Right.
his work, which I support, and I think it makes a lot of
Oh,
sense.
yeah.
Um,
So this, what this does, what you're asking us to send to council is basically saying that we as a town are joining the program that allows businesses within the boundaries of Scarborough to apply for these loans. We don't have anything to do with approving them.
No.
Where, and looking at the language, it looks like the town officials don't have any liability with it.
I saw the
of everything.
disclaimers.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense that there's liens on it. I mean, lien holders, if you're giving people any substantial amount of money, you wanna put a lien on the property.
Right.
But that's if they were to engage in as I understand it, if they were to engage in a program like this and somehow default, then there
Right.
would be a penalty to,
There's a way for the lender to recoup their
They
investment.
can foreclose, they can lien on the
Okay.
lien. Yeah.
okay. So I'm just trying to get my head around things that sound like a great idea, but when I start reading about liens and liability and what happens if it doesn't work, I'm like, ooh, well. But this is a voluntary program, right? They
Right.
wouldn't be required to do it. It would be up
Yeah,
to the
no.
developer to do that.
It just, it gives the opportunity for businesses who want to participate.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall, did you have
I
something?
just want to be clear, my recollection of the residential program, which is seldom if ever used, my recollection. The town is involved in that we would actually be the one to place the lien on behalf of the lender, is that right?
I think that this is set up differently so that it would be Efficiency Maine basically would administer all of it.
Good, well, that's.
That's
even
how
better.
I read
Well,
it.
Yeah.
they reference the city or the town may administer the functions of the commercial PACE program, including but not limited to the PACE agreement. So if we're gonna be incurring a burden there from a staff standpoint, I think that's something we would want to spend some
It
time.
talks,
talking about.
if you look under section 7, collection default.
I'm looking under section 4B.
Oh, I'm looking under default
You're
foreclosure.
reasonably ahead of me. You're
So-
here.
The way that the program is set up, there are two options. Either the town can
Yeah.
decide to administer the program on its own, or we can partner with Efficiency Maine to
Right.
administer the program. Only very large municipalities, like on the scale of New York City, would choose to administer their own program.
Yes.
All municipalities in Maine that have passed a commercial PACE ordinance have partnered with Efficiency Maine.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it just makes sense. I just couldn't remember why it went back and came back, so. What's wrong with it?
No, transition of I think it was just a victim of poor timing.
The
We
election.
had an ordinance meeting that unfortunately you were unable to attend. Nick was,
Okay,
it was just Nick and I,
Okay.
and then we
That's
were
why I'm like, I
transitioning
don't
to a new ordinance committee. And so before the previous ordinance committee had a chance to turn over,
Yeah. okay.
or I'm sorry, before the previous committee had a chance to make action on this,
Yeah.
we turned over. And so now it's back.
I also,
Yeah, go ahead, you get another question?
yes. Section 8, liability of municipal officials, liability
That's what I
of city and
said.
town, yeah.
We're
And you
not
asked about that,
personally.
yeah, well, I know that, thank
Okay.
you, but thanks for reminding me of that. However, it does say notwithstanding any of the provisions, they are, the city town officers, city officials, including without limitation, are not personally liable. That's the same protection we have operating as counselors, right? We are not personally liable for our decisions.
Right.
Right?
Right,
Tom? Help
Not
me.
universally.
unless you do
Something
something with
negligent.
criminal
That's what
intent.
you told me once.
No, so long as you, yeah,
Okay.
there are exclusions to that, but they're extreme.
Yes, thank you. So I mean, I like the concept of this, and I know that, I'm surprised that more, residential, adoptions haven't occurred. Does that surprise you, Tom? That-
Yeah, it does, frankly, but this is a bit cumbersome. I mean,
Yeah.
liens on property is, different than,
Yeah.
than going and getting a home equity loan.
And-
Funding this.
I'll just add with the residential piece, there are a lot of very attractive like tax breaks and incentives now. And when this was first put in place, there weren't those opportunities.
But they still have the liability aspects that this does for commercial people.
Yeah.
See, anyway, I'm not gonna get into what I would do here, but
I suspect this might be more, more well used in that you've got a higher level of sophistication. I don't mean to disparage residential homeowners, but and much larger capital costs and project savings, frankly, through efficiency projects. And I think the real backdrop to this is access to cheaper capital, arguably, and that's why a business would be interested in going here rather than the conventional.
Right.
grant money and that sort of thing that would be available for this or.
I don't exactly understand the source of the capital partners, but it potentially is below market capital costs.
Yes. It's my understanding.
Yeah.
I personally, I think it's can go to council, is my opinion.
I agree. I think this is an opportunity for those that want to take advantage of it and participating in a program that may benefit the businesses. It's incumbent on the businesses themselves that decide whether or not that this is something that they want to pursue, to understand all of you know, what that means to be a part of this program. We're simply saying, yes, the town of Scarborough is willing to authorize the program. And they have to have this, they have to have council approval that the town offers the program in order to apply, correct?
Yes.
What I'd like to request, I'm not, I'm in general alignment with the comments that are made so far. And I think the fact that this is in place for residential users, I think is encouraging. It would be helpful to me, however, and I think to the public, for us to hear maybe from somebody from Efficiency Maine to talk about, you know, this version, this
You do that at
extension.
the council
There's
level.
two, it's been presented publicly
Good.
twice,
Okay.
once at the Sustainability Committee and then once at Ordinance Committee in
Okay.
October.
But I'm
And
thinking,
We can cue up the video though. from-
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I'm just letting you know it is,
Yeah.
it is publicly available.
what I would
And
say,
it's
though-
gotta go through council, so.
right, but what I would say is sometimes people don't really follow all the action in committee. I know the close followers do like us, but a lot of people don't unless they have a particular issue. So if we're gonna take action
Right.
as a council on behalf of the entire town, I think that it would be nice to have a video or have someone speak to this. Maybe not a full workshop, but a preamble or something. I don't know what you call it.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
By the motion,
I move to send this to council as presented.
all in favor? That was easy.
With a presentation. We didn't have that with a motion.
Your
Trust my
request,
colleagues.
your
But
request
it's
to
not-
town,
not
to
to the
leadership,
chair.
that's right.
Not me, the chair of the
Oh,
council.
I will talk to him.
There.
Jeez, well. All right, now,
Item 7.
I know, and I've got to
Here.
go all the way back. Oh, you've got it up, okay. Item 7, chapter 415 impact fees.
We do have a presentation.
They have the packet open. Is the
It's not in the packet.
Oh,
Can I
it's not.
share my screen? We spent a lot of time with this. It's so much better than listening. We normally,
Yeah.
there's like.
This room is.
You can plug in.
No kidding.
It's,
I don't have my. Oh, I just.
You'll all
gonna
see
share
it.
my screen and then.
We are
you
not-
can
Oh,
plug
sure.
in. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, that works.
Can you promote me?
Yep.
Thank you.
Assuming that you're all connected to.
oh, I'm not logged into this.
Oh.
I can be.
Yeah,
What?
let me
What do I have to do?
log into.
I'm
log into
looking with April.
That
public
works.
joining.
I can probably turn my
No,
screen,
show it.
once you show it, I can turn my screen and then they can see.
Okay.
But you all,
Fine.
April knows what she's
Oh,
doing.
Okay, that's all right. I get it.
Do you want to try to project it up?
no, I don't.
That's all.
We just plug in, you should, I think you can.
Okay, do that. I don't think I saw, oh, there's one there. I should have known. I knew Autumn was going to go in the presentation.
You know, I.
Always has a presentation.
She likes presentation. But I get it, because then people are visual and.
Some people will listen to me, some people will read, some people will
That's how I
look,
am.
but.
Hopefully you don't know you.
Yeah, why don't we-
Some people will still probably do that. Okay.
Not us.
Oh, good.
We're gonna try to project it here.
All right, so this is impact fees, and what we are talking about today are the recreation impact fees and traffic impact fees. and we had a workshop in October, and some of this is just a repeat of information. Just basically that the state statute allows a municipality to enforce impact fees. There are some parameters that you have to follow. We can't pay for staffing or operations or maintenance, but we can pay for new and expansion.
And we
So-
can't pay for schools, right? I mean.
New?
Well, portions of it.
But building a new school.
Yes.
You,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The building itself,
a new or an expansion, it has to be directly proportional to the development or
Right.
whoever the payee is.
In other words, it can't be just impact fee because you feel like putting one on, it has to have a reason.
we did do a calculation when we talked about the unified school project.
In October.
Yep.
I'll follow with you on. I missed that.
Because we have the school impact fee now.
Right,
Yeah, just the quick high level of the fire school proposal, but I think methodology is sound. I believe Karen had 28% of the cost was attributable to new growth, new students, and that was the subject of the fee, the dollar amount that represented 28% of the total cost.
It's really similar, the way the school was proposed at that time is really similar to how recreation is proposed, so I'll go through that.
Okay, so it wasn't to build, it wasn't for bricks and mortar, it was for the impact of the services required to have teachers.
no.
It's no-
it's
It's
bricks and mortar.
it's the opposite, it's not for the operations, it's for the brick and mortar.
Okay.
The county.
Thank you.
But remember, the distinction here is it's capturing impact of growth, if you will. It's prorating or attributing what a new development per se is demanding on our systems, if you will, from infrastructure and bricks and mortar point of view.
So we do have several in place now. The school, as I mentioned, it's been in place since 2002. And then we have chapter 415 right now, which is the school impact fees. And then we have chapter 415A, it's a Dunstan Corner traffic impact fee. 415B is Tigers Parkway, and then 410 roadway. And so the reason, if you opened your terribly scary red ordinance, it's because of the way we're trying to propose to put these things together.
You're axing all those, right? Those three. Those last.
So, yes, so what we're doing in chapter 415, we're gonna keep that as the framework. And we're going to combine the general provisions from all in one section. And then the school impact fees will stay where they are. The recreation fees will fold into there. And then we're reserving section just in case for open space after the end of the open space master plan is complete. If there's a possibility for those impact fees. And then section 5 will put all the roadway impact fees under one umbrella. So we're going to reduce some duplication of language in each district. And then have all that up front, and then each district will follow. And so those will all be repealed. Dunstan and Higas, they're just going to be rolled into this new 415. And then we have the new Payne Road and Ginn Road fee, and then the new Payne Road and Nunsuch River.
No, why those two?
We need a plan in place in order to, like, to the point earlier, you can't just have an impact fee because you want to have an impact fee. It has to have a plan. And so we've been working through to try to get a plan in place so that we don't miss opportunities.
So it could be like expanding the bridge.
Exactly.
That's a debt.
It's rebuilding the bridge and the capacity
Yeah.
for the through lane.
Bingo. Yeah,
And then
right.
Payne Road and Ginn Road is actually signalizing that intersection and the capacity. So Payne Road, we're working through our transportation master plan, and so part of that, we have a vision and a plan for Payne Road that is extended greater than what it is now. So this will help.
And I'll have detail as
Yeah.
we go through. There's a lot more detail on traffic.
It's
Well,
much
that's-
better in a PowerPoint than reading
So-
the ordinance.
I sort of thought that would be, so this is just sort of the framework for the madness of combining everything. And so the recreation impact fee, it's pretty simple. We have been collecting recreation impact fees sporadically throughout the years, but we don't have an ordinance in place. And so this language puts an ordinance in place, and then the way it's proposed to be created is per bedroom as a fee. So we have, so we're using the Parks Master Plan that was accepted by council, and that from each line item in the appendix, we've identified if it's a replacement, expansion, or new. And all of those items can be rolled into the impact fee amount that we're trying to get back from development. And so once we've defined the population costs based on the bedrooms that we have and taking into account our rate of growth, we have that 20% of the cost for those impact fees will be attributed to new development. And so what that ends up being is the 400 per bedroom that's in the ordinance. And so this is just a little bit more math, but it's the new projects are roughly, we have 10,859,000 that we can attribute, get back. And so 22.1 million is that 20%. So that's what we're trying for time. In 10 years, we're going to have approximately 2,610 units. That's approximately 5,330 bedrooms. So if you were to do it per bedroom, you'd get $408. If you were to do it per person, it's $415. So the proposal is the 400 per bedroom. In the ordinance, I've added that there would be a not to exceed amount for single family for 4 bedrooms. So the fee would cap out at 1,600. You can keep that, you can change it or let it be open-ended, but that's just a recommendation in the ordinance.
How does the assessor's definition of commercial fit here? Are those units included in these numbers or are they up?
There's nothing to do with commercial whatsoever for the
Bedroom is a
recreation.
bedroom is a bedroom.
Only
Okay.
single family bedrooms. And
Good
it's
to know.
multi-family bedroom, a single family
Commercial
bedroom, a duplex bedroom, nothing.
Okay, no assessor's definition.
Very varied.
So-
What I think, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and this is based on our rate of growth ordinance and some assumptions that will continue the way it is now. And then we've taken in the limitations that are in the rate of growth ordinance for 3-bedroom homes. So there's some assumptions built in there about how our growth might continue.
Rate of growth ordinance and GMO. Are those that we have, is that the same thing?
We have a rate of growth ordinance now. It used to be
We
called.
no
a
longer
GMO.
have GMO.
Ah, yes. Very important. Language is very important. Yeah, let's see, that's a shot. So there was a chart that showed all of this sort of in verticals here in the package, so
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was,
it's actually, is it the impact?
it's the
The
impact fees
calculation.
with units, I think,
Oh, yes.
you know, I could show. And I wasn't really following that when I looked at it, I knew you could explain it to me.
Is it this? The methodology? This thing?
That's it. I
Okay.
think so. Yeah. that's
Let me,
first- yeah,
okay,
it's
let me start.
4 columns or whatever you have. Yeah,
Okay,
I need another hobby.
so this is basically, the PowerPoint is just a synopsis of this. And so this is the methodology that we would have on file that council would need to adopt if the impact fee goes into place. And this, of course, could be tweaked. The population number is a 2021 ACS number, so any of those things might be subject to change a little bit. But this is basically the same information. So you have your cost and then the percentage of cost, the new development being that 20%. And then how you get there. These are the assumptions that are built in, like I said, with the rate of growth ordinance and our build out that we've seen so far. And this is what Karen has worked on, creating this model that we talked about in October as well.
So we last did this 2002, was that right? What was the last time we did impact fees calculations? It
Oh,
was,
No, that was the first.
that was the
First
first
series.
One of them,
right.
been
We've
updated for years.
several times, yes.
so when was the last update?
I think 27. I don't know.
I don't remember.
It escapes me. Certainly the
Why
Heights
do you
Parkway
wait?
in Dunstan.
Why do I ask?
Hmm.
Because I'm trying to understand what kind of increase there would have been from the last time we did it.
2020.
Okay,
Looks like.
all right, there I knew it was 2 2s in there and a couple zeros, so. Okay, so 5.
John, this is,
But
a
again,
br- this is a brand new.
Brand new.
impact fee.
This is new.
It's never existed before.
This is recreation.
Okay. But the last time we updated impact fees was 2020.
Looks like we updated,
I'm not, that's a
Just
question.
some.
Sure,
Yes.
we just did
That's
some.
what, we do them all at different times.
Right.
Okay,
Out of curiosity, just, I've got my real estate hat on now. So what are all the impact fees going to add up to per bedroom? And just for the public to know that these are paid by the developer. Of course, the concern is the developer passes it on
Sure.
to the consumer, who's the buyer of the unit or renter of the unit. Do you know off the top of your head? If you
So,
don't worry about it.
A single family home, typically the building permit is about just under $2,000 for
Okay.
your plumbing and building and
Right,
electrical
right.
right now. And so if you had a 4-bedroom home and you have the cap, so that's another $1,600 for recreation. And then you have to pay the school impact fee.
Yeah, I was gonna say
And I
the
don't
school
have-
one. That's okay,
I
don't
don't have it
worry.
memorized off the top of my head.
No,
but-
no, that's okay.
It
I
does-
just want people who are listening to be
Right.
aware. You
And
know,
then, of
that,
course, whatever that, depending on that developer, how big it is, they may have had to pay traffic impact fees.
Oh, sure.
They're gonna
Oh,
put
yeah.
in their offsite improvements,
Right.
so
Right.
all of those costs.
right.
Yeah, for
Because my own-
purposes, we, with the current suite of fees, we have used $10,000 as a kind of a rough number for a single family home
Yeah.
in a larger subdivision.
Yeah. Okay, and this is, again, just me speaking, and I think impact fees are great, they make tons of sense. But I wanna balance that against, housing affordability and whatever, that's Jean Marie, so.
yeah, I follow up to that one, to that comment, because, I mean, have developers seen this yet, or any, I'm obviously not gonna like increases, but
Oh, they never,
will you have any process to validate it with them, or just say, here's what's coming, what's your comments?
Right, so this, in the slideshow, I've got next steps. I have a presentation. So the development community's been aware of this, 'cause we did the workshop in October and I have some pretty regular meetings and I think they're more scared about the road ones. They're scared.
Okay.
But there is an awareness. I have a presentation to SEDCO next Wednesday to talk about this and other
Okay.
things.
Great.
And so, yes, there is
Straightforward.
some outreach.
Thanks.
So this is, and let me clarify, this is not an ask for you all to move this to council. This is more of just the first
Right,
Great.
ordinance review and
Right.
then we have some other plans.
Right.
So do you have any more questions about?
No, that
this?
sounds good.
Okay, I'll go back to the slideshow. So, and that's where we come up with the 400 per bedroom. And that's what's in the ordinance. And I have a clean version of the ordinance. If you had any questions about that, how it actually looks in the format that I can show you.
So quick question, so an impact fee would be paid upon occupancy? or
Building permit,
Building permit,
pay when you get your building. permit.
so it's a one-time thing until you increase the fees again.
Correct. And they wouldn't apply to anyone already having a home. So these would only.
Yeah, it's
so
only when
just
it's
for new
something's
things.
built,
Right,
it's only
right.
new
Right, it
construction.
wouldn't be paid when you want to remodel your home.
Right.
It's a new use.
New construction.
New construction.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction. This isn't about repairing the ills of the past or whatever the deficit that exists. It's about capturing impact of future growth.
There'd be no way to go back.
No,
Okay,
This is all about when you bring up, cost to serve, and we really want to, this is their cost to
Right.
serve for our recreation needs specifically. This
Thank
is their specific, this is what you owe us.
And most people aren't aware that these are paid at
Right,
time of construction. You know what I'm saying? The general public has no idea that these fees get paid
right.
that are, as you say, offsetting, hopefully some of the future costs of whoever's moving into that home or apartment or whatever, so.
yeah, I don't want to jump off the page, but I know we're also gonna do, so we've got impact fees, but also cost to serve, right? So we're gonna be seeing updates on both of those, Tom, or?
we're active in front of finance committee, have been, and will be again tomorrow on cost to serve.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Terrific.
That's a whole different exercise than.
I was gonna say that's two different.
different exercise, but certainly related, you know,
Yeah.
in the back of your mind, you have this cost to serve, but you have ways to recoup things.
You're right.
So impact fees is. a tool.
Yeah, I think this would be well received, people seeing that we're truing things up and we're trying to make sure we're current with.
So I just want to draw a distinction. Cost to serve is really information for decision making, right? To evaluate a project or an option or even a land use choice. Whereas these, through the ordinance, you know, they are exacted at the time of building permit. There's no decision to be made once the ordinance is in place. We collect them.
Or they don't build.
Yep. Just a question. I don't know, I didn't see in the drafting, is there any allowance for a project that may provide for the recreation needs of its residents?
Yes, there's a waiver,
There is, okay.
there's a waiver section.
I can think of some instances, Hillcrest comes up, you
Yep.
know, they built themselves a community center and have a bus to transport the residents. And so there might be occasions where there's a legitimate waiver that should
Okay.
be granted.
It's a cue, I would think that would be a cue. That's a good cue for talking about where we are with the community center project, right?
No.
No,
Okay,
no, Dawn.
I'm jumping.
Now I'm gonna have to
No,
rein you in
that
here,
would be
sure.
more if you had a subdivision and you were providing your own pool
I
for
see.
your
I see, like they
homeowners.
have over at the Beacon and Gateway,
Right,
their own pool.
right. They could ask for that. And the way the waiver is written is that town council is the authority.
Who gives the, I was gonna ask, who's the authority?
So I,
Okay.
because I know in the past, planning board has been asked and like, we don't have. the
We don't want
authority. So it would be council
That
that
makes
makes that
sense.
authority.
Yeah, that meant, yeah, good,
Because
I was glad to
money.
hear that, okay,
And so that is in there.
so you
There's
can
a-
always say no.
There's a refund provision that's required by law.
Right.
The calculation and the use and
Right.
all of the regular requirements.
Thank you.
So then,
Moving on to traffic.
go to traffic.
All right.
Woohoo.
So, we did our workshop with council and I know it was pretty brief at the end. We talked a little bit about the next phase kind of traffic impact fees as we're essentially closing out projects, and putting money into larger projects. Again, these are all fees collected by developers. We're looking at more of a master plan around Payne Road. And so coming up with two separate new Payne Road impact fees. One being associated with Ginn Road and having some traffic signal and widening. And the other one, as you had mentioned earlier, is the pinch point at the Nonsuch River. And so really capturing that corridor, but the main, you will see the numbers really focus around the cost to replace that stream crossing, that river crossing is pretty substantial. So we'll get into that. We're also looking in the near future of coming back and adding another Payne Road impact fee, and that's at Gorham Road. That is a high crash location. There is some work being done as a requirement of a private developer's traffic movement permit is to provide us with a design and a cost, which is essentially makes it easier for us to then go and on the back end calculate out another impact fee, because we know this is the need. It's been identified by DOT. It's there. Here's the design. Here's some costs. And so it's kind of handed to us to be able to come forward with another one in the near future, like next year. And then looking further out, we're looking at another pinch point is Cummings Road. If we're looking at the Payne Road corridor, that is probably a high crash location for the region. It's pretty significant. As well as we have our townwide transportation plan, which out of that will provide us some guidance for the next. So it'll be probably a reoccurring thing, looking at other trouble spots, I guess, in town and looking at how traffic is being impacted by development.
How does this work with state roads? I.e. like 114 where I am.
Yeah.
State controls that and does,
Payne Road is also controlled,
Yeah.
is a state.
so, okay,
state
so
road.
that's
same
what I
thing.
wondered, yeah. Okay.
There's certain sections that are in compact, but a lot of this area, well, they're.
So we can
they're
put
acting
impact, but
as
we can put
now,
impact
but-
fees on those state roads.
We
if-
can,
Okay.
yep. This also is an area though, which I guess I'll get into a little bit later too, is when we start talking about the numbers. pretty substantial that, again, this is a state aid road.
Yeah.
That the state should be helping and partnering with us,
You
so we
think?
can get so far. I think it's also an opportunity if we go as a community to DOT and say, we have $5 million.
Right.
What can you bring to the table? That's pretty significant when you
Yeah.
think about most municipalities coming to it with their hand out with $0.
Yeah,
So I think it puts us in a very good
Yeah.
position to get a partnership with the
Okay.
state.
No Muzzy Road?
Well, Muncie Road, as far as the signal.
Yeah.
Is part of the Downs traffic movement
Yeah.
permit. They're required to put it in, and the timing of that is in 2025 into 2026. So that is coming, we're a year out, but they'll be starting with that project.
Thank you.
So that is taken care of.
I just want to say one thing, there's a difference. The recreation only applies to residential,
right.
but roadway applies to
Commercial. Oh, it-
commercial subdivisions,
Okay.
site plan, anything that has a trip. That goes,
Good distinction.
so it's a little bit different.
And to your point with the Muzzy Road, part of our collaboration has been the past impact fees that we've gotten from a development, we're actually putting into that project too. So that is a partnership, and you'll see that with council CIP requests. It's really using those impact fees to take what the Downs required to do and take it up a notch and kind of expand their project. So you'll see that, and Muzzy Road is an example of that for Payne Road District 3.
Thank you.
So these are the areas. The two blue boxes are encompassing the two districts that I mentioned that I'm laying out first. One is including signalized intersection again, the other big one, and the other one is the Nonsuch Crossing. However, the entire corridor, we're really looking out as a master plan and looking at 4-lane section. Instead of right now where you get to intersections and then it narrows and then it widens and narrows, it's keeping that consistent so that the capacity of that corridor is maintained. It also looks at bike and ped facilities through that corridor. So you'll see that as part of the cost associated with it. And as you said, Muzzy Road signal will already be incorporated. And then I've also noted where the next piece will be coming from, which is the Payne and Forum intersection.
I'm just, this is a curiosity question. The signalized intersection at Gim Road?
Yeah.
Isn't that putting two lights really close together?
It is, but it is required, and they can,
Okay.
they are, would be connected, so they'd kind of work in tandem, kind of
Oh,
what we
okay.
try to do with Dunstan is
Yeah, I was like,
an example of
the
homes
Rite
like-
Aid light and the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important that they are connected
Yeah.
together and speak,
Right.
it's all,
Okay.
but it can work.
Okay. Just
As an
curious.
aside, Atlantic Federal Credit Union
Yeah.
is building on that vacant pad site next to Urban. And
Oh, right,
Center Forum,
right.
Ken and Payne Road. And they were required to do the design, and it was in fact that design and the cost estimate.
Yeah.
That gave us the information to be able to advance
Okay.
this piece.
Yeah,
Very similar to what's going to occur next year at Payne and Forum.
Yeah,
Ain't a country road no more.
no,
hasn't
Well,
been for a long.
It's interesting you
time.
point that out because the other section toward Flaherty's Farm.
Yeah.
Is a country road.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're having conversations around how to
trying to
maintain
preserve
that.
that, yeah.
We at all don't expect to maintain that 4-lane corridor down in that direction though.
We don't want 4-lane corridors on Gorham Road. We want 14 right.
So this just kind of lays out the methodology, and so it goes back to really it's about what the new development coming in paying their fair share. And so we have to do a whole model to look at the traffic volumes of the existing capacity of our road and then calculate through the growth, which taking pieces of what Autumn had talked about earlier, but also we need to, on top of that, get approval through the state DOT to make sure that meets their criteria. And then we rerun the model with those proposed numbers, and it's really that difference of capacity that we're really looking at the new development coming through to pay for. So that's how we kind of get to, here's the difference. And so then we base that difference for design and construction estimates to come up with a per trip fee. So here's where we're at. Looking at the Payne and Gid Road District was that first blue rectangle. The improvements within that, we're looking at close to $10 million. And so when you start breaking that out, it puts it at per trip basis of that $5,500, just over $5,500 a trip.
That's the toll, that's the cost of the toll to go through there.
Okay.
Yeah.
5,500.
Again, this is for new development and they have to do a model to show, which they're doing currently on the impact fees we have, and can show which intersections their development will be impacting.
So if I'm Beacon a Gateway and
Yeah.
I contribute, 35 trips
Mhm.
per day. Again, district, it'd be 35 times the 5,600 there. That's how you do the math? Huh.
Yeah.
But it would be 230.
I was gonna say,
I
yeah.
was gonna say, nobody.
Yeah.
They're pretty big numbers.
And more than likely, a project of any significance that would trigger the pain again would also be in a position of triggering at least partially the next one. So, yeah, you can appreciate most project of any significance will probably be paying both those.
Wow.
So to your point, the numbers are starting to get staggering. That's added on top of our $6,000 for school impact fee or rec fee.
Well, this, a good
So
example, sorry, the old racetrack. This is an example, Beech Ridge. If they came in now, they would be paying our existing fees, but if they come in and this is adopted, then their trips, all of their trips would be going through the Payne and Gin Road, but they're not going north, they're coming from 42. So they would be paying that, but they wouldn't be paying the river, Nonsuch River District, because they don't have any north trips. But I think we just rough guess, I think they had like 48 or 49 trips.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So they would be paying that 48 times 5,600 as part of their development. But they would not pay school impact fees or
Right.
recreation
Right,
impact
right,
fees. So the commercial is just paying this.
And again, this is just pure numbers, just to get a reaction, just to get the magnitude out to have the conversation, because this is without any partnership. I should throw that out there. It's also looking at the lowest as far as construction cost increases that we may see. So I'm going on the low end for construction costs. But to that point, what we talked about is essentially the state of Maine should be replacing the Nonsuch culvert crossing. So for us to be able to try to get as close as we can is really the goal. And so again, this is us locally taking that full ticket on. Whereas the likelihood is that we would try to get grants or money from the state directly.
The thing is that this does keep, if you're charging, whatever these fees are, the developers coming in have to be real, true developers. In other words, people with substantial capital and whatever, not just some fly by night coming in, oh, I want to put in a, whatever, I mean, that's how I sort of look at it too. And it does, and I'm talking off the top of my head here, it sort of does limit who's able to develop.
Yeah.
Because you get these fees, you gotta be able to afford. You understand all of that? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a point where a project
Oh,
doesn't,
yeah, you're thinking something else.
there's also a point where a project doesn't make financial sense. And
Right.
these, to that scale, there's all sorts of other pressures, interest rates and,
Oh, yeah.
but that's something to be aware and sensitive
How do
to.
we stack up with other municipalities that are doing what, like
We've
Portland
done
or
some comparative work. I
Westport?
would say we're on the higher end of
Yeah.
area communities.
Okay.
I have a question. What happens when, to your point, we collect impact fees for something that the state really should probably be funding and we're hoping will be funding, we're gonna seek grants. What happens to the impact fees that were collected for that project if we receive outside funding?
There's no way we're gonna get to 23 or $24 million in 20 years. So it would be,
We would just be, we would
contribute,
a portion of the
contribute, it would be
More
contributed.
likely, we'd have enough
Yeah.
collected to be a local match or something.
Fair enough.
Exactly,
Okay.
that's really where we.
It's sort of
probably
like,
be.
I hate to use the word bribe, but it's to encourage
Well,
them to
Angela
come forward.
Angela said it pretty plainly. I mean, if you're gonna
Yeah.
go to the state and ask for
Right.
money and you have empty cans. you
You're
know,
not as
you're
apt to get it.
appealing
Yeah,
as-
exactly.
As
So-
a district that is prepared. to
This
give
is
you that
very
amount.
much kind of the first cut, and I would characterize as worst case, because I think we could
It could
Yeah.
get worse. yes.
higher construction costs, escalators, and those sorts of things.
Why not? Everything else is.
But I might suggest that we find ourselves in a place where we want to take a portion of these, some percentage of, to make it more
Right.
acceptable.
I guess I would point out too that, through the process with the Downs kind of shining a light from DOT, looking at, different projects we're doing around town, is that we kind of got our hands slapped by DOT because we have been collecting impact fees and weren't doing anything with them. Because of the
Oh, right.
point, you're talking about some of these projects that are millions and millions of dollars. And yes, we're taking in quite a bit of money, but it's just collecting in the bank
Right.
because I can't get past that threshold to make that beneficial. And that's why we've
Right.
actually
Actually do the
partnered
project.
to do the project. So
Right.
we also don't want to go too low where
Right.
we're gonna
Not
have
enough.
$2 million in the bank just sitting there and we can't do anything. with
Right.
it.
I think that will be important to explain to the public when we
Yep.
talk about it again, you know, because I don't think people understand there's a rationale for why the town would consider partnering, you know, with the state and with the developer to get it done. You know, it's their project, they should pay the whole thing, and it doesn't really work that way. So I think some discussion on that would be very helpful. The other question I had was, I'm just jumping around here, who calculates the trips? Who does that math on that?
So our peer reviewer reviews them, but there is, a handful of, traffic engineers in our immediate region that, just have access to the model to be able to run that and they'll come up with, a number,
Okay.
which everyone tends to agree on. There might be little nuances, but.
But there are
they
agreed
do-
upon standards, uses of a certain type will generate certain
Yeah.
number of trips,
Yeah.
and then the models are based on those. Maybe it's misunderstood, but these are largely for what I characterize as offsite. In some cases, you know, the Downs is putting money into projects in Gorham and South Portland.
Yeah.
So their reach is very, very far.
Hmm.
They're also responsible for all the stuff on the doorstep, kind of, you know, the full cost, if you will. These are
Right.
really for those offsite, and that's where the model becomes really important to understand where you're drawing traffic from and where's it going to. And that's really the hallmark of this approach.
There's a lot to this, I mean.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
So when I look at the numbers one more time.
No, please,
Take so
no.
long to get these numbers together.
So, basically, our next steps, we have transportation committee is gonna review this on March 26th. And then Phil Saucer legal review is ongoing. As I mentioned, SEDCO, March 21st, and then finance committee review, I have a question mark to know if.
I've been asked for an update tomorrow. I might steal some of the slides, frankly, just to run through them quick.
Ideally, we would like to have, a July 1 implementation. It makes it really clean with our budget
Fiscal year.
process and the fiscal year and some other districts that Angel plans on closing.
Right, it would be good to wrap this. I know it's a pretty big beast to kind of do it all at once, but just to make sure we're not double dipping in different
Right.
areas. I think there's gonna be some districts we have to close out as we add new ones, so it makes it cleaner to kind of do that all at once. I know it's a lot to grasp at once, but I also want to be fair and equitable about how we're collecting that.
And who knows, I might even propose using impact fees that don't yet exist that we expect to get.
And so this is the schedule I've laid out to be able to achieve that. And then June 19th is a question mark because it's a holiday, so.
We decided.
We can discuss,
26.
yeah, we
Five
can
days.
discuss moving that
Yeah.
to 26.
And I'm away.
Okay.
that day.
And so that would get us to that July 1, but
For 3 days.
if there are other things that you think we should, other stops along the way, or if you'd like us to come back in April, I don't suspect any ordinance language to
I was gonna
change
say, what do you
other
need
than
from
the
us?
draft.
Well, I guess we'll hear from SEDCO.
Yeah.
Right.
How that works, but
Right.
it might need some direction to your
Right.
point on where do we take these numbers? Cause
Right.
it can be anywhere. Right now, we just talked about, the largest traffic impact fee we have right now per trip is 1,400 per trip. So,
Wow.
just to put it in perspective, however, that was obviously very dated. Because those have been in place for 20, 30 years, so, so just keep that in mind, is, I don't know where we wanna.
Just a historical footnote, there were, most of our fees, we had projects, that we never collected enough to ever do. And now we're able to do them in partnership with private money and state money, and local money. There are two projects that the town actually undertook the projects. We improved the intersection Heidi's Parkway and Route 1. And then all the Dunstan improvements were done as a package. The town undertook those projects, incurred the expense with impact fees that paid that debt. So that works in reverse. And the difference there is we get the benefit of the project right up front.
And you know the exact cost, and so you know how to.
I can't think of a good candidate for that approach, but that's just something to keep in mind. If there's something that we can't and don't want to wait for, that's another thing we consider, is to actually design the project, do the project, and put a fee in to make sure that we cover the costs of the debt.
I know you drive Dunstan intersection every day, so do I, and that the improvements there have been remarkable.
Notably,
Really.
yeah.
So,
And we hope with the final missing piece of adaptive signals, we're gonna see a full corridor improvement.
Yeah.
And it's not until it's all operational, can we really appreciate whether, it's true effect.
that's a good timeline.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
And to Angela's point, I think the only thing that may change are the recommendations for the numbers, but not the actual
Yeah.
language, so. this
Great
works.
work.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, we're on item 8, future agenda items. Obviously, we're gonna have language on enforcement of this.
You made something come out of most apologies, but I don't know, maybe.
No, it's not allowed.
Comms wants to pass something over to, rules and policy.
Because,
Connect with you.
we went from, 0 to hero on.
I gotta talk to you. Anyway, what are we gonna need playing in?
I have,
April.
environmental standards
Yeah.
from the Conservation Commission.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then
It's done.
and then I
Thanks,
also
Dawn.
had, site layout and architecture from Long Range Planning Committee. And that could
Yep.
go in May if it needed to.
Yeah, okay,
But those are the two items that I.
all right. Anyone else got any?
Can't think of any.
Yeah,
I anticipate the cannabis language coming back.
Yeah. and I'll work with Liam on that. All right. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah,
That's it.
it's been a lot of fun tonight.